It's wonderful to see everyone again this morning. We are grateful for your continued participation in this symposium. Okay. Today's program will begin with our opening ceremony. It is our great honor to welcome Dr. ZhaoHong, Executive Vice President of National Taiwan Normal University and Chief Executive Officer of Resource Center for EMI, for the opening remarks. Let's give him a big applause.
Dr. Han and Professor Liu, and this remarks are written by the EMI Center. So it started with the ladies and gentlemen, but actually it is not. You are my friends, because we spent time in New York for a week. So dear friends and distinguished Professor Han and our colleagues from EMI Center, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Professional Development Symposium, dedicated to the showcasing result from our collaboration with Columbia University this summer. We are especially honored to welcome Dr. ZhaoHong, and also dear friend of mine, Director of the Center for International Foreign Language Teachers College Education at the Teachers College at Columbia University, who will open today's program with a keynote speech. Her insights will set the stage for our reflections on innovation, pedagogies, and the global perspective in EMI and bilingual education. Following the keynote, we will move into the full day of capstone project presentations in 3 sessions. And our colleagues from the different universities in Taiwan who will participate in teacher college program this summer will share their accomplishment of their learning journey, ranging from research-informed practice to classroom innovation. These projects are not only academic achievements, but also powerful demonstration of how professional development can reshape the teaching and foster greater impact within our institutions. As we begin today's program, I encourage you to engage with the presenters and exchange your ideas with them, and take inspiration from their dedication. The path of EMI development is not a single event, but an evolving process requiring collaboration, reflection, and innovation at every stage. I have the fortune to witness your contribution in this June in New York. And I sit in the back row to watch all the step of your discussion and your sharing, and it was very touching, and I wish I was just like you, to be a student, but I only can be the observer to record all the process and the vital step, each step you did for your institutions. And Professor Liu and I, we had a conversation and a discussion with Professor Han 2 days ago, and we firmly believe the collaboration is very successful. And we know we took the right step to have the collaborations and the learning camp in Columbia University in New York. If we have this camp in Salmon Lake in Taiwan, we firmly believe that it won't be that so successful. And because you bonded together in New York for 2 weeks. And unbelievable, you even have a class on the national July 4th, the national day. Yeah, I read all of your schedule, yeah. So you didn't see the firework, I believe. But all the effort that you did in New York, and also achievement you bring back to your university. I already heard from Dr. Han said how wonderful he have observed the chemistry happens in your university, and how your administrations of your university care and focus their resource on the EMI education. I think this all success, not only because of you did it in your university, but also you bring back the message back to university. So that, I think, is very successful. You deserve a round of applause to yourself. And thank you once again being here, and I wish you have a meaningful and a rewarding day. But thank you for EMI Center writing such wonderful remark for me, and I added something by my own heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yin, for your inspiring words and vision. And next, we will delighted to welcome Dr. ZhaoHong, Director of the Center for International Foreign Language Teacher Education at Teachers College, Columbia University, to deliver a keynote speech.
So I'm going to start today's event with a very short presentation titled EMI in the 21st Century, a Playbook. Because much of what has transpired over the last several months involves us together as a community, exploring and co-constructing a playbook, a robust playbook, not a random kind of playbook, but a robust playbook for EMI that represents what the world today needs. So this is my title, EMI in the 21st Century, a Playbook. Okay, so let's open the playbook. Let's open the playbook. If it's a playbook, it has contents, and indeed, there are 10 chapters in this playbook. 10 chapters. Chapter 1 is titled, Knowing is Half the Battle. Chapter 2 is called, You Can Lead a Horse to Water. Does that ring a bell? Yeah. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Chapter 3, you can walk and chew gum. You can walk. You can chew gum. Walk and chew gum. That's chapter 3. Chapter 4, you can kill 2 birds with not 2 stones, not 3 stones, but 1 stone. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Chapter 5, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Chapter 6, you can read the room. You can read the room. Chapter 7, you can keep your finger on the pulse. You can keep your finger on the pulse. Chapter 8, you can bring it down to earth. Chapter 9, you can make the best of both worlds. Chapter 10, if you do all of the above, students are going to learn the ropes. 10 chapters. Of course, this is what I would call a cryptic table of contents. Only us who have participated in this project understand what they mean. Other people do not understand what these things mean, right? But because we have both participants and non-participants here with us today, I would like to make things a little bit more explicit for everybody. So here comes another version of the table of contents. This one is explicit. 10 chapters. Chapter 1, knowing your students. It's important to know your students. Chapter 2, teaching is about providing conditions. Teaching as providing conditions. Chapter 3, integrating content and language. Chapter 4, promoting incidental learning. Chapter 5, cultivating self-efficacy. Chapter 6, practicing exploratory practice. Chapter 7, responding to evolving needs. Chapter 8, connecting to the real world. Chapter 9, optimizing human AI alliance. Optimizing human AI alliance. Chapter 10, developing functional competence. Okay, so the remainder of my presentation, I'm just going to very quickly unpack each of these to take this opportunity to help everybody refresh your minds a little bit about what we discussed, what we co-constructed in those 2 weeks, and what you worked on afterwards. Okay, so starting with chapter 1, knowing your students, or to use that cryptic title, knowing is half the battle. Okay, so there are a few things that we need to keep in mind with regard to that. Number one is we need to know who our students are to begin with and what their learning history is like. You need to understand, you need to find out about their learning history. And what are the EMI, what are the students' EMI communicative needs? Why do they learn their content in English? What kinds of communicative tasks they need to perform in the real world? What are their cognitive needs? Because learning fundamentally is a cognitive process. So thinking plays big into that process. So what are their cognitive needs? And what are their linguistic needs? Okay? So those are among the many, many questions we can consider in relation to knowing your students. Here comes chapter 2, teaching as providing conditions. And below it, you see that cryptic title. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. All right, so a few things to jog your memory about. So here we have EMI, which stands for? Louder? Louder? Good, thank you, congratulations. I know you've been very busy, at least you still remember that, EMI, English medium instruction, all right? So if EMI is about creating conditions, if what you do is you lead a horse to water, but you can't really make it drink, then providing the conditions is key. And there are many, many conditions we can and perhaps should provide in the classroom, but there are 4 that are key, meaning missing any of those conditions is going to jeopardize the learner's learning opportunity, okay? All right, so you see one there, input. What are the other ones? Negotiation, feedback, and output, right? So those are 4 essential conditions. So take this as yet another reminder that there are key conditions that need to be present in the classroom, okay? As we think about these conditions, of course, it isn't a matter of a plus minus presence. It's all about quantity, quality, and last but not least, learner needs, okay? As we have discussed in class, most of our EMI students are so-called late second language learners. They are adults mostly. Some of them perhaps are adolescents, but they're late learners. Late in the sense that they start their learning process after the closure of the critical period. As a result, there are certain disadvantages that they have to overcome. But those disadvantages are not something they can overcome on their own. They need teachers' help. What are the disadvantages? Among many, here are a few. Number 1, lack of ready access to the target language. In this case, it's English. Lack of access to English. Another, because EMI happens in a non-English speaking environment. So that, to begin with, is a sort of a disadvantage, relatively speaking. So that's one. Second disadvantage is a scarcity of cooperative interlocutors. Fewer people they can actually converse with in the target language. Third disadvantage, the age-related reduction in some neural language learning power. Remember we talked about the decrease of neuroplasticity, lack of sensitivity, lack of flexibility. So all these are disadvantages of working against our learners, which is why we need instructors. Not any kind of instructor, but instructors like you, who now have been trained, who now know quite a bit about the learning process. So what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and what we can potentially do to overcome, to minimize, to temper the disadvantages, so some learning will take place. Okay. Chapter 3, integrating content and language, or as the saying goes, you can walk and chew gum. Okay, a few things to keep in mind. If you want to walk and chew gum doing two things simultaneously, then you need to have a broader understanding of the learning process perspective on EMI. You need to engage in holistic teaching, not the traditional type of teaching of breaking the language down into very tiny elements, like a proposition here, article there, and then you hope one day learners will be able to accumulate their understanding of all of these things and they're able to use the language. That never happens, okay? So you need to actually engage in holistic teaching, starting with content, not with language forms, not with conjunctions, relative clauses, but starting with content, meaning, and engage students in meaningful, not mechanical, not artificial, but real, meaningful comprehension and production, okay? And you need to be able to scale down your teaching if you see your students not responding well to what you do, and scale up as well to propel them forward. So scaling is important, okay? Scaffolding, needless to say, is very key. That's what teaching is mostly about, but we don't equate teaching with scaffolding, because if we equate these two, then we're saying we always, every day, every single day, every single hour, we need to scaffold learners, we need to handhold them. No, that's not the case. We need to do it judiciously. We scaffold them as time goes by, we respond to their developing abilities, we withdraw scaffolding so that they can become, over time, more and more independent. Okay, timing. Think about the timing. All right. Now, the central premise of EMI, the EMI we're talking about here, or content-based instruction in general, is that students can develop both content knowledge and English language proficiency reciprocally through meaningful engagement and disciplinary material. So if you have students engage with a real content, two things can happen simultaneously. Chapter 4, promoting incidental learning, or to use a more idiomatic expression, you can kill two birds with one stone. During the 2-week period, we spent quite a bit of time talking about this concept of the power of reading. The power of reading. And I remember specifically, we actually delved into a few strategies, such as sequential reading for content, and for content and language mapping. So sequential reading for content, promoting comprehension, and then content and language mapping. That's acquisition, right? Okay, narrow reading. When went out to observe some of you teaching this time, over the last couple of days, we saw some of you actually using that concept of narrow reading, trying to use that. Extensive reading, reading for pleasure, and coupling, not segregating, but coupling reading and writing. So reading feeds into writing, and writing supports reading. And in that process, there's comprehension, better and better comprehension, but there's also acquisition. Coupling, reading, and writing. There's something in common when it comes to these specific strategies, such as narrow reading, extensive reading, reading for pleasure, reading and writing. And by the way, why reading for pleasure? Reading for pleasure. If there's a reading for pleasure going on, learners themselves are going to find things to read because they enjoy the reading process. And when they read for pleasure, their affective filter is low and they're more open to processing new information, okay? And also common to the use of these strategies is a mechanism that we want to build into that learning process, which is called frequency. As learners read more and more, they're bound to see the same things occur again and again and again. So there's a frequency. When there's a frequency, there's this magic thing that promotes language development called salience. They're going to see things standing out for them. All right. Chapter 5, cultivating self-efficacy. Self-efficacy speaks to individuals' confidence. So there are individuals with high self-efficacy, and typically those individuals are not afraid of challenges. Even if it's something, if they are given something to do that seems beyond their current level of competence, they're not afraid of it. They want to make an effort. So we want to see learners being in that environment with high self-efficacy. Individuals, in contrast, who have low self-efficacy, they tend to shy away from challenges. They tend not to take risks, and those things are not helpful to learning. Okay? The good thing about what we know about self-efficacy is that it is an individual difference variable, but it's malleable, meaning through students' experience, learner self-efficacy can go up. Okay, it's not a direct variable contributing to the learning outcome. It's an indirect one, but if learners have high self-efficacy, they're going to make additional efforts, okay? Chapter 6, practicing exploratory practice. And here I'm using the idiomatic expression. You can read the room. You need to read the room. When you're in the classroom, Mike, when you taught that finance lesson, you were reading the classroom and see who was responding, who was not responding. Okay? Teaching, as we know, is an art, craft, but it's also a science. So we need to read the room to collect data implicitly or explicitly to tell us what is happening. Practicing, we need to practice, to use a buzzword, evidence-based teaching. We don't teach, we're not witch doctors. We don't teach by hunch. We don't teach on the basis of what we ourselves have experienced as learners. Okay, we need to see evidence in our own classrooms of learning or lack of learning. Okay, both are important. Okay. We need to conduct exploratory practice in our own classroom. So all the presentations are going to be showcased today, come under this particular research genre. It's called exploratory practice. Essentially, this is a type of research that happens in one's own classroom. It is not compared to the quote-unquote academic research where you need to have a hypothesis, questions a hypothesis, and then experimental design, et cetera, et cetera. This is a much more straightforward way of engaging in data collection in your own classroom, and your job is to come up with a puzzle that you have observed, and then you collect relevant data in collaboration with your students. So students are also part of the research process, and together you co-construct solutions. Okay. Developing firsthand knowledge of what instigates and sustains learning in your students. You, as the instructors, know firsthand what works for your students and what doesn't work for your students. Not your dean, Not your department chair, not anybody else, but you. You have that firsthand knowledge. Chapter 7, responding to evolving needs. And the idiomatic expression that I'm using here is you can keep your finger on the pulse, just checking, monitoring, and seeing what's happening. Okay, teaching is not a static process. Even when you teach a 1-hour class, it's not a static process. It's a dynamic process. And learners' needs that you gauged at the beginning of the semester, the beginning of the course, are going to evolve in the course of the semester. So take that into account. What that means is you need to constantly adjust your teaching. Yes, you need a syllabus, but the syllabus needs to be tweaked and retweaked to meet the learner's needs. Learners learn only what they are ready for. Sometimes teachers are overly ambitious. They prepare a lot, but the response isn't that great. Why? It's not that students don't want to learn. They do, but they cannot process that much information. Okay? Students learn only what they are ready for. And teaching, as we have learned, is about scaffolding the process of learning. I can't emphasize the word process enough. Teaching is about creating a process for learning to take place. Teaching is not a performative act such that you just check the boxes, I've done A, B, C, D, E. No, it is about creating processes in the classroom and see how students are responding to those processes, how they do, and then you make adjustments accordingly. Okay? Chapter 8, connecting to the real world. And the idiomatic expression I have here is you can bring it down to earth. Okay? It's about making the classroom, I don't know if anybody recalls the expressions, a laboratory and an observatory. It's a laboratory in which they experiment with the language and content. It's an observatory because through the classroom they can see the world writ large. Okay? Using authentic materials, authentic tasks to the extent possible, focusing on capacity building, not how much they have to memorize, how much they can do. Okay? Capacity building and developing their functional competence, meaning a competence they can use in the real world. Chapter 9, optimizing human AI alliance. And the expression that I'm using, the idiomatic expression I'm using is you can make the best of both worlds. That's the goal. And again, this shouldn't be a performative act. It's not about, oh, I use AI in my classes. I have students actually interact with ChatGPT or something like that. No, you have to be very thoughtful about when, how, and what to do with AI, okay? So what we want to do is to co-opt artificial intelligence in the service of EMI, not because we want to please somebody. We want to tell the director, the dean, or whoever that, yeah, I do use AI in my teaching. No, it's not about that. It's about carefully, thoughtfully using AI to enhance, enrich the instructional and learning experiences. And here I have a second line there. The beauty of AI is in the eye of the beholder, because I think the debate is still out there between people who don't believe at all in AI, and there are people who believe AI, regardless, I'm going to use AI, or no, I don't think it because AI leads to plagiarism and all the negative consequences. That, for people like that, if they only point to the negative consequences, that's an indication that they have not understood AI. Okay, skilled users, I want to highlight this. Skilled users can use AI to augment teaching and learning. In contrast, inept users, people who cannot use AI, can suffer unintended consequences. Okay, this in and of itself is a big topic that I don't have time to unpack today. Let's come to the last chapter, developing functional competence. Once you've done all the things that are discussed in chapter 1 through 9, students are going to learn the ropes. They will know what to do. Okay, learning by doing. And as instructors, we ought to systematically organize teaching, learning, and assessment. I know systematically or systematic is a word a lot of people use. Do they really understand it? Do they really know what that means? Systematically means coherence. There needs to be coherence between teaching, learning, and assessment. And within each of these realms, there's coherence. Okay? Let teaching be guided first and foremost by communicative goals, not linguistic goals. Okay, I know you teach based on what we see this time. Many of you teach in different kinds of classrooms. Some are more aligned with language training. Others are more aligned with content training. Regardless, always put meaning first. Okay? All right. I think I'm almost done. This is taking up my time. So here's a quick view of the TC-NTNU EMI Professional Development Roadmap. This program actually comprises 2 acts. Act 1 involves 2 weeks of intensive in-person training in New York City. And then there's an Act 2. Act 2 is about engaging in field work. And there are 2 pieces to it. One is for all of you to engage in exploratory practice research, right? There's another piece to it, and that is for us, faculty, to go out there, to go into your context and see you teach in your classrooms. Those of you who actually were observed at this time probably would agree that the experience was unique, right? The experience was unique because we were there, we're watching you teaching, and then we immediately sit down to have a discussion about why this, why that, and what could be improved, right? In your context, not in an abstract context, but in individual context. I think that should be a powerful experience for some of you, right? And part of the field work is also this, what we call an academic symposium. We're here to actually participate. All right, let me just showcase very quickly, without taking too much time, a few photos from our field trip observing teachers. Okay. Ooh, wow. Yeah, oh, wow. Look at that. Oh, very engaged. All the instructors we observed were very engaged. It was a very solid evidence of a tremendous learning and the desire to change practices. And we also had an opportunity to, in some cases, to confer with administrators who actually oversaw your teaching. And they also confirmed, yeah, I think the confidence level has gone up and there are more strategies. And we even heard from one of the instructors we observed that students were telling the instructor that they really want to attend the instructor's classes because the instructor is doing things that's very engaging. So these are very useful and very telling, very robust indicators of learning taking place. All right, so that's the playbook. And we have already started implementing the playbook, but what is going to happen in the rest of the day is a big part of implementing the playbook. So here are a few things to keep in mind before we jumpstart the presentation. So we're going to have 3 sessions of a project presentations showcasing learning from the 2-week in-person learning in New York City. And each presentation, keep that in mind, lasts 20 minutes in total. And this is how we split the 20 minutes. So that everybody will get a chance to present. 10 minutes for presentation and 10 minutes for discussion. Okay? Oops, no, I can't. All right. Everybody see the QR code? I would like to give you a minute to scan the QR code because this QR code will lead you to an evaluation form or note-taking form that everybody sitting here can and should use as you tune in to each presentation. And this is a form with some guiding questions about each presentation. So make sure you have access to the form, and this form can be filled out multiple times, okay? And filling out the form will facilitate the 10-minute Q&A. So you have something to say, not just randomly speaking off the cuff, but you really have something that you want to get some clarification on. Okay? Skip that, oops. Hold on. Never mind. Uh-oh. I think I clicked a few things. Well, if this goes wild again, forget it. I'm not going to do anything. All right. Why don't we just stop here to make room for the presentations? I was going too fast because I was showing some slides for the graduation. Hey. Yeah. So that's it. And good luck. I'm really looking forward to learning from you. Okay, thank you.